Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Earwax. I'm Colin, and today we're going to be doing a review of the brand new Pixies album, The Night the Zombies Came. Alright, guys, so this is the ninth full length studio album from alternative indie rock legends, Pixies, brainchild of Black Phillip. And I have to say, Pixies, in my opinion, are one of the most important and influential bands in the alternative indie rock scene. I'm not the only one that feels that way. There has been numerous musicians that have cited Pixies as one of the most important bands in this genre. I do think it's a little ironic that within this span of about a month, we're getting not just a new Pixies album, but also a new Kim Deal solo album, which is due at the end of November, I believe. It should kind of show you something about how I feel about that. The fact that I've pre-ordered the new Kim Deal album and not the new Pixies album. And there's a couple reasons for that. Number one, the first single I heard off of the new Kim Deal album, Crystal Breath, I think is incredible, and it made me want to pre-order it just based off of that. And then the singles that I had heard off of the new Pixies album, The Night the Zombies Came, were not songs that immediately gripped me. Now, I do think that, since Kim Deal officially left the Pixies, their output hasn't been as strong. But they've had some great songs in the 5 albums since, and this album is no different. It's definitely got some moments, but I think that overall it's, struggling to live up to the heyday of what made Pixies such an iconic band to begin with. I do think that, their first couple, at least full-length albums in Surfer Rosa and Doolittle are absolutely incredible. I think they're two of, if not the two best indie rock albums from the 80s. There's a handful of other albums that I would put up there, but not many that I think can really touch those. And since then, I do feel like this Pixies discography has kind of slowly gone downhill, but they've never released anything that's been just straight up bad. And I think it's a testament to, Black Phillip's prowess as a songwriter, that even 9 full-length albums in, 10 if you include the their first release. I can't remember the name of it right now, but the recorded sessions they did right before Surfer Rosa came out. He's always had his finger on the pulse of what makes a good indie rock, alt rock jam, and he's always been able to do it incredibly well while throwing in a lot of other elements into his songwriting. They've always been able to throw in some surf punk, some surf rock, some straight up punk, and this album is no different. It's got a little smattering of all of that kind of thrown in. And I did enjoy it. I think that there's a couple really great standout tracks, and there's, a couple, I don't want to say boring, and I'll get into that, when we talk about the songs themselves. There's definitely a couple tracks that left me wanting a little bit more. So, without further ado, let's dive into the track list. So the album opens up with a song called Primrose. I do like this song. It's a cool little laid-back indie jam. I like Emma's vocals on this, the current female vocalist and bass player. It's got some kind of light surfy vibes with the electric guitar. The harmonizing vocals are really cool, and it's a good just easy way to open the album. It's got some really catchy moments of the chorus that definitely get you kind of singing along, and it's a nice way to kind of ease yourself into the next track, which is You're So Impatient. So this is probably, I don't want to say my least favorite track on the album, but it's got to be close to up there. It's a fast-paced kind of harder alt rock jam. I get some current era Elvis Costello in it, which is not necessarily a good thing. I mean, Elvis Costello is a legend, but I haven't been the biggest fan of the stuff that he's been coming out with in the past 5 to 8 years. It seems like they're trying a little too hard to be edgy, especially on this song. Like it comes off as a little try hard, and it's not, again, not a bad song. There's just nothing about it that's like super exciting or makes me want to come back for more listens. It's got some crunchy guitars, some pretty standard, just like basic drum backing. The vocals are fine. There's nothing, super off-putting about them. There's nothing super like exciting about them either. And then it's got like toward like the about 3/4 of the way in what you could, I guess, call like a guitar solo, but it's pretty underwhelming overall. And then from there we get into what is kind of the title track. So it's Jane parentheses the night the zombies came. It starts with like this spooky sort of eerie guitar with some like bells thrown in. But when the song like really gets going, it falls a little flat for me, especially the vocal performance. It's very like linear, a little drab, and it's just not like super exciting. And for a song specifically titled like The Night the Zombies Came, it's not spooky or eerie enough for me. The vocals do eventually fill out a little bit in the chorus, but they never really get to a point where they're carrying the song and the instrumentation isn't strong enough to really stand on its own. So kind of disappointing, especially for it being like the title track. Not a bad song. It's just nothing about it that really like is bringing me back in for another listen. But we then go from there into Chicken, and Chicken is, I think, hands down my favorite song on this album. I've listened to it 3 times so far, and I am like, the first time I listened to it, I immediately put this on like my modern indie rock playlist, and I am going to listen to this song a lot over the next few months. Just maybe not necessarily the entire album. This is a wild song. So the lyrics are kind of crazy. It's got this really sort of like laid back, catchy acoustic guitar line throughout the majority of it, but it's also even more like eerie and spooky than the previous song, which is, at least from the lyrical content, not quite lining up, but I like how weird and kind of off-putting it is. It's got this like swelling atmospheric chorus with these really kind of groovy and ethereal guitars and this driving bass line. It's got a really soulful outro as well. I love absolutely everything about this track. It might be one of my favorite just like rock songs of the past 10 years. Like I think it's absolutely incredible. And it's definitely a good argument for the fact that even if not everything that he's doing nowadays is perfect, Black Phillip is still one of the best indie songwriters of the past 50 years. Like he's just absolutely incredible. And then from there we get into Hypnotized, which is a weird follow-up to Chicken. So with Hypnotized specifically, the first thought I had, and I kind of maintained it through like my multiple listens, was it sounded like a high school like indie alt rock band performing for like a Battle of the Bands or talent show. Like it just comes off a little juvenile and not necessarily in a good way. It's a little raw. It's definitely a little rough around the edges. And it's not bad. Like, again, it's not a bad song. Had this been like a song from a band that was just getting started, I would have thought, wow, they've got some real potential. I can't wait to see what they're going to do next. But at this point in his career and in Pixies' career as a band, it just is a little surprising that like this is a song that made the album. It's not a bad song. It's just, it feels very raw and underwhelming. And then towards like the end of it, his vocals get super nasally and really, really annoying. At least like the last lines of some of the like the chorus, like the last couple times he sings it almost completely takes me out of the experience. And I'd say outside of that, it's not a bad song, but those couple moments where his voice gets super nasally is pretty hard to listen to. From there, we get into Johnny Goodman, which is another disappointing vocal performance. Not that, Black Phillip is the most amazing vocalist of all time. I think his success and his appeal has always been in his uniqueness and his songwriting ability and like definitely some of the edginess that came off in their earlier stuff, and I definitely feel like that's missing, not just on this song, but kind of throughout the album. The instrumentation, though, is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's kind of generic, just like alt rock. Nothing super crazy. But I think that is, or at least it needs to be acknowledged that they were like not the first ones, but like the main ones to define this sound, and it's been copied so much since then that that's probably why it sounds so familiar, and you have to remind yourself that it really came from them to begin with. From there, we get into Motorola. This one, it's another good, just like solid, jammy indie rock song. I like the dual vocals here a lot, and it's got some fun moments. There's nothing disappointing about it, nothing that super like stands out to me, but it's a solid addition to the album itself. From there, we get into I Hear You Mary, and I like this song a lot. So it starts off really like dark and brooding, and almost has like a Nick Cave-esque kind of southern goth vibe to it. It's got these really like haunting guitars and these pounding drums, and then the chorus kicks in and it really achieves this like really big sound that is just backed by like this kind of distorted, eerie sort of blowing wind synth sound that just keeps like the kind of like spooky theme throughout the entire song. The vocals on this song are done really well, and I wish I had more songs like this on an album that is specifically titled The Night the Zombies Came, but I'm glad that they've sprinkled enough kind of like eerie, spooky songs to still make that title feel relevant. And then from there, we get into what I think is the first like true punk song on the album, which is Oyster Beds. We even got some eyes going on. It's a lot of fun, high energy, high octane, definitely showing that like when they want to, they can do punk really, really well. There's this like kind of sinking guitar lead throughout it. Like they keep, going down in notes and octaves, and it creates a really cool experience. Definitely like one of my favorite songs on the album. From there, we get into Mercy Me, which sees Black Phillip doing his best Lou Reed impression on vocals, which is not bad. Like, it's an interesting kind of deviation from his traditional like vocal delivery and structure. It's a little bit more laid back, especially coming off the high energy of Oyster Beds. The guitars and the drums sound, again, very familiar, especially to like what else is on this album. Not much variation there, but good, laid back, slower, kind of crooning indie jam. And then we get into the last three songs on the album, starting with Ernest Evans. Now, they've had some like elements of surf kind of thrown in throughout a few tracks up to this point, but this song in particular is just like a straight up surf punk song, and I am here for it. Absolutely love it. It goes a little bit hard. You definitely have some of the edge that I've been missing on this album. But it's also like very groovy, very well written. The sweeping surfy guitar leads are absolutely incredible. The drums are bouncy and tropical, and overall it's just a super fun experience. And the vocals just round off the whole song really nicely. And then from there we get into King of the Prairie. Now, this is, at least to me, the song on the album that feels like it could have come from like pretty much any Pixies album. Like, it just sounds like the most classic Pixies song. It's a little bit slower, laid back, more acoustic driven sort of, alternative ballad. It's got some like southern borderline country sounds in the guitar tuning, and it's a solid track. There's nothing wrong with it. The vocal performance is a little linear again, but it's, again, like, you're not necessarily listening to a Pixies album for amazing singing. You definitely want some like uniqueness in the delivery, but it's a fun track. And then we end with the Vegas Suite. Now, this is an interesting way to end the album. I'm sure there's some deeper meaning in the lyrics here. I just don't really care to like dive in and find them. If on surface level it sounds like a bad experience in Vegas. The instrumentation is fine. It's again pretty standard, just like generic indie rock. The guitar gets a little fun in the middle and then kind of goes back to just more generic sounds and tropes, but still fun. There's nothing wrong with any of the songs on this album. There's just a couple points where I wanted a little bit more, but considering, the mediocrity on the last few Pixies albums, I wasn't really expecting to be absolutely blown away by this one. Overall, I do think it's a fun album. Like, it's hard to argue that Black Phillip and Pixies, have not earned their title of the greatest indie rock, alt rock band of all time, or at least, in the top 3 discussion for any given day. Even, 9 albums in, they're still putting out some great tracks, even if not every single song on this is an absolute banger. I'm feeling a B on this album. I don't think it's bad. There's definitely some songs that are going to bring me back and want me to keep listening to it. There's a couple songs that I probably don't need to keep listening to over and over again. I'm not going to, run out and buy this album on vinyl right now. Maybe it's one I'll add to my collection at some point, but there is some stuff in their back catalog that I need to get first. But if you haven't listened to it, go check it out. If you have, let me know what you think down in the comments. And as always, I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.